What's going on? It's the Big Rig Bull, Texas truck accident lawyer Reshard Alexander. Tuning in today. Hey, before we even get started, hit that subscribe button for me, that red subscribe button on YouTube to follow along on my vlog. Well, I just got back from court this morning, so now that I'm back in the office, it's time to call some claims adjusters and do some things like that, and just handle my cases. That's the main thing that I'm gonna do every day, because that's what I do. All right. I've become really complacent with working out. Lately, I've been getting a little fatter, though, I noticed, because I've been eating a lot more. I use so many calories. I burn so many calories throughout the day. So two things. I got to get this standing desk. Within probably the next 2-3 weeks, I'm going to get a standing desk in here for sure. I'm going to go ahead and do that, because this sedentary lifestyle, just sitting here, is not me. I like to be up and active. And then the other thing is, I'm going to start working out. You know what I mean? I can do push-ups, sit-ups. I can do all that stuff right in here. So I had these at home, the perfect push-up. I had these at home. I'm going to start using these up here at the office. I got a little bench press bar. I mean, not a bench press bar, but a curl bar. I brought that up here. I got it in the car. I got to get it out of the car, bring that in here, and start working out with that. You can change your life, I believe. But it never happens overnight. You know what I mean? Nothing ever happens overnight. It's always just small, consistent steps that will take you where you want to go, or that's what I believe. But it's Houston. I like to eat, and the food is so good down here. It's ridiculous, and that's why I try to just stay in and work. Because you can spend a lot of money. You can spend a lot of money in Houston just going out to eat. I mean, the food is that good down here. So, I'm gonna start working out inside here. Just throughout the day. Because that's the way to do it, I think. You drop down, give me 50, you know what I mean, in the morning, then and then at lunchtime, and then in the evening, and then all that stuff over time. It just changes. It changes things. So that's what I'm gonna start doing. You heard it here first. I made a promise to you. I'm gonna start working out. I gotta work out, man. I gotta work out. My metabolism is so high, though. I mean, even at this age, my metabolism is off the charts. I think, you know what I mean? Because I ate those sandwiches. I looked at myself on that vlog last night when I was editing it, and I was like, man, I look really chunky. But then I got up this morning, and it's like it was all gone. And I just get it right back once I eat again. But I gotta change that habit. I'm not perfect. Nobody is, though, so let's get over ourselves. What's going on? It's the Big Rig Bull, Texas truck accident lawyer Reshard Alexander, here for episode 50 of the Big Rig Bull vlog. Today we're going to cover on the road with hazardous materials. So what are professional truck drivers responsible for when it comes to truck accident law when they are on the road with hazardous materials? Let's go ahead and jump right into it, shall we? So to start off with, if a truck driver, a professional truck driver, is transporting hazardous materials on our roadways here in the great state of Texas, locally in the city of Houston or anywhere else, they're required to have shipping papers in the form of bills of lading or manifest, hazardous waste manifests and things of that nature. Now, the driver is responsible for maintaining shipping papers and having easy access in case of an incident, an accident, or an inspection by local authorities. Okay? These shipping papers must be carried with other shipping papers, the hazardous material shipping papers, but they must be clearly distinguishable either by being tabbed or being the first thing to appear in their notebook or whatever they're carrying the materials in. The driver, when he or she is at the controls, the shipping papers must be within the driver's reach when they are restrained within their seatbelt. Number 3 is it must be readily accessible. The shipping papers must be in the driver's compartment or in the holder mounted on the inside of the door on the driver's side. Now, what if the driver is not in the vehicle? Then the shipping papers must be either in the holder, on the door, or on the driver's seat. Okay? The last thing is emergency response information, which is covered in section 172.602. We already covered emergency response information or ERI providers and things of that nature in a previous vlog, so I'm not going to really go into that with this one because you can just go back to my other vlog. When we talk about registration, registration is covered in section 107.601. Okay? And on board each vehicle that is marked and placarded for the transportation of hazardous materials, there must be a copy of the current certificate of registration or another document that bears the registration number identified as a US DOT hazmat rig number such and such and such and such. All right? That's for every single hazardous material truck or commercial motor vehicle that is driven by a professional driver here on our roads. Now, we're going to go ahead up here to the safety permit. Safety permit is covered in section 385.403. All right? A commercial motor vehicle that is transporting hazardous materials and is driven by a professional truck driver must carry a copy of the safety permit or another document that is showing the carrier's safety permit number and is clearly identified as the FMCSA safety permit. Okay? Number 2, a written route plan for a certain Class 1 explosive and Class 7 radioactive material, and a telephone number to contact the motor carrier or a representative of the motor carrier who is familiar with the expected route for the material. These are very dangerous materials that these guys and gals are carrying on the roads, so it's expected that they have already thought out exactly how they're going to get from one point to the other, how they're going to get from the pickup to the drop-off point. All right? Now, the driver, the professional truck driver, will contact the motor carrier at the beginning and end of each duty tour, meaning when they stop and start for the day, they're going to contact that motor carrier to let them know where they are with that load and the pickup and delivery of the load. And they're going to do this by telephone, they're going to do this by radio, they're going to do this by electronic or monitoring system. Okay? Okay, the motor carrier or the driver must maintain communications records for 6 months after the initial acceptance of the shipment. Okay? The record must contain number 1, the name of the driver, number 2, the identification of the vehicle, number 3, the materials transported, and the last thing is the date, time, location, and the time of each required contract. All right? The last thing we're going to cover is this little bit of stuff over here, and that's railroads and tunnels. We already talked about railroads and tunnels before in a previous vlog, so I'm not going to go into that too deeply. Suffice it to say, see, this pen is dead. It's not working anymore. Suffice it to say that when we're talking about railroads, a commercial motor vehicle that is transporting hazardous materials and encounters a railroad cannot stop any further out than 50 feet and cannot stop any closer than 15 feet. As we said before, this is not a time for a truck to shift gears while on the tracks. They need to drive straight across, and they must make sure that it's clear before crossing. Now, there's some other issues in there too, but if you have concerns about that, you can feel free to give me a call. We can talk about it, or you can just reference my one of my last vlogs. When it comes to tunnels, trucks carrying hazardous materials or hazardous substances are not supposed to travel in tunnels. Okay, they're not supposed to go through tunnels. And additionally, if a state or a local law is more restrictive than the hazardous material regulations governing the travel through tunnels, the hazardous materials regulations will not supersede those local or state regulations. Okay, so it's possible that a truck driver will encounter more restrictive regulations in a particular city or state than that are enumerated in the hazardous material regulations. The other thing we want to talk about is routing. Routing, we're talking about, the driving of the vehicle, right? And planning out the route. Well, there are some exceptions, okay? And that is when there's no practicable alternative, when it's necessary to reach a port, terminal, an unloading or loading ports, facilities for food, fuel, rest, repairs, safe haven, or when there are emergency conditions that calls for a particular truck driver to take a particular route. Now, when I was talking about routing, what I really meant to say at the beginning was that truck drivers that are transporting hazardous materials are not supposed to drive these types of materials into crowded areas and things of that nature where they know a great deal of people will be populated and stuff like that. The idea is to transport these materials in, not necessarily in isolation, but you don't want to come into contact, you want to come into contact with as few people and, hazardous conditions as possible, because you are carrying a load that potentially can have devastating effects on those around them. And if a spill or an accident was to occur because of a truck accident, like I said before, it could be a very serious situation that would not only affect people at that particular time or day, but it could potentially affect that area for years if it was, say, a radioactive material, class 7 radioactive material. Now, as I said before, an asterisk on this is that operating convenience is not an exception in these types of situations, okay? And like I said, the exceptions I already enumerated. You can go back and look at this. It should be, I think you can read this. And if you can't read it, then like I said, give me a call. The next section is fueling. When a truck or a commercial motor vehicle that is marked and placarded for the transportation of hazardous materials is fueling, the engine is supposed to be shut off and someone is supposed to be in attendance and in control of the fueling process. Okay, the last thing we want to talk about is parking. Okay, so a hazardous material truck cannot park within 5 feet of the traveled roadway, and they're not supposed to stop there really either. A vehicle that does not contain a division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 class 1 explosive may not stop for operational necessity or impracticability to stop elsewhere. There are additional requirements for class 1 explosives or class 1 explosive trucks. If you have questions about those, feel free to reach out to me. Once again, this is the Big Rig Bull, Texas truck accident lawyer Reshard Alexander, helping you have a blessed day and signing out today on episode 50. Y'all take it easy.